Hi, everyone. I'm Mike McLeod, editor of Design Engineering Magazine, and thank you for joining us this morning. Today's webinar, Solving Design Challenges with Thin Section Bearings, will look at how these special bearings can save weight, create space, reduce friction, and increase design flexibility in many applications. Before we jump into today's presentation, a few housekeeping points. First, attendees will be on mute throughout the presentation. If you do have questions during today's event, please type them into the GoToWebinar interface and we'll answer them at the end of the presentation. With that, I'd like to introduce Brad Fleetwood, product specialist at SKF, who is responsible for the Cooper, Kadon, and Pier product lines. Brad, the screen is yours.
Thanks, Mike. Hello, everybody. I hope everyone's having a great day. Again, today we're just going to have a quick overview of the SKF Kadon thin section bearings and basically what they are and where to use them. Our first slide is basically the SKF vision statement of, the vision is a world of reliable rotation, and the mission is of SKF is to be the undisputed leader in the bearing business. Some other information of SKF, it was originated in 1907. We have over 40,000 employees globally, over 100 manufacturing units. We have over 40 different industries that we work with, and we also last year had a sales of 12 billion Canadian, or around 9 billion US. So, and we also have 17,000 distributors worldwide. So first we're going to actually show a short video that actually kind of explains what the Kadon bearing is and how it's used. I just have to get it to play.
Kadon really slim bearings are designed to solve the world's most demanding bearing challenges. Kadon's exceptional engineering support provides our customers with problem-solving, application-specific, custom, and standard thin section ball bearings. For applications that present space and weight limitations, consider thin section bearings. Thin section bearings have the capacity required by a wide range of applications, while offering exceptional design flexibility. Kadon invented the thin section bearing in the 1950s. In many applications, a single thin section bearing will do the job of a bigger, heavier bearing. Kadon really slim bearings save weight, create space, reduce friction, increase design flexibility, and provide excellent running accuracy. Kadon really slim bearings are the most widely used thin section bearing brands in the world. The principle is simple. Instead of the cross-section increasing with the bore size, as happens with regular bearings, the cross-section of the thin section bearing starts thin and stays constant even as the bore diameter increases. Compared to the 6010 standard ball bearing, the Kadon really slim bearing provides an 83% reduction in weight and an 85% reduction in space or volume. Even thinner, the Kadon Ultra Slim bearing is also a solution for heavier, larger bearings. Compared to the 6010 standard ball bearing, the Kadon Ultra Slim bearing achieves reductions of 99.9% in weight and 97% in space. Savings like this tend to have a ripple effect, producing more savings throughout the system by reducing housing size. This assembly was originally designed with a standard ball bearing. 2 standard ball bearings were replaced with Kadon really slim bearings for a 66% reduction in weight and a 70% reduction in housing size. Thin section bearings permit designers to reduce housing sizes while leaving the shaft size the same. The constant cross-section of the really slim bearing is advantageous when designing a product of various sizes. By using the same bearing series throughout a product line, the designer can standardize on maximum shaft sizes and minimum housing sizes. The bearing envelope for all diameters stays the same.
Okay, so I hope everyone was able to see the whole video. Again, so just to kind of recap, the real slim bearing thin section bearings are available from 1 inch to 40 inches or larger. The standard material that we make are bearings out of our 52-100 steel, and then a stainless steel. We also have hybrid ceramic ball bearings available, and certain Enduro coatings and stuff that makes the steel bearings have just as good conditions, as the stainless steel provide. We also provide open and sealed bearings. And as far as custom bearings, we've done many custom bearings for the aerospace and defense for flight critical aircraft equipment and space type equipment, torque sensitive applications, and like I said, custom sizes are available. And we also are the leader in low volume specialty type bearings. In the pictures below, the second picture here, you can see where we actually have taken a real slim bearing and added gearing to the outside. So these do come with gears if required. In our website, we actually also have a area where you can download several different catalogs, and one of the catalogs are our application guides, where it actually goes through and kind of explains the different industries that you can apply the real slim bearings to. So industrial machining, aerospace, defense, oil, gas, medical, semiconductors, renewable energy. To go into further detail, like for industrial machinery, we're talking machine tool, machining equipment, robotic equipment, optical scanning, imaging equipment, packaging equipment, defense and aerospace. They do targeting systems, navigation systems, propulsion and control systems. One of the interesting ones is the Mars rover actually had the Kadon real slim bearings. We also do radar and satellite applications. The oil and gas industry, again, we do drill equipment, pipe inspection equipment, roughnecks, medical CT scanners, tables, chairs, surgical robots, and then semiconductor machinery for making semiconductors and computer components. And then we also are involved with renewable energy with the solar panel, basically to keep the positioning equipment for the solar panels to keep them in line with the sun as it moves. The benefits and capabilities, the key benefit of the Kadon real slim bearing is for space savings. As you saw in the video, the cross section of the bearing is much smaller than a standard bearing. So you can fit you can optimize your designs to have a larger shaft and smaller and maintain your same housing diameters, which produces a stiffer shaft is typically better for applications. Weight savings, again, with the smaller cross section, you can reduce weights to 80 to 90% of standard bearings. Energy savings, again, we can change the geometry or the preloads and surface finishes of the bearings to reduce the starting torque and running torque of the bearings. Also, if the design requires more stiffness or robustness, again, the bearings can be, the actual bearing itself can be redesigned, or we can add preload to it to increase the stiffness. And for harsh environments, again, we can change the steel, the material of the bearings and add coatings and change the ball bearing materials to improve basically the handling of the different applications for your specific product that it's being used with. Noise reduction, again, that we can actually add preload or improve surface finishes, or even change the design a little bit to reduce the noise that it's produced by the bearing while running. Now we'll like to do a small audience poll question.
Okay, I'll pop that up on the screen here. So in your industry, which design criteria is most important? I'll give you a few seconds to click, and then we'll look at the results. All right, good. And let's take a look here. So it looks as though space reduction is the biggest consideration at 48%, followed by corrosion resistance at 38% and weight reduction at 14%. Do you want to speak to a couple of those, Brad?
Yeah, actually, we're gonna go through more of that in the slide, but yeah, for the weight reduction, again, like the video showed, that's the main key is weight reduction with using these bearings because of the smaller cross section.
Sure.
And corrosion resistance, again, we can make the bearings we can make it out of many different materials. And we also have coatings that are sometimes better than stainless steel in certain applications. And again, the hybrid bearings with the ceramic balls, you can use that with either the stainless steel rings or the steel rings with the Enduro coating, which will provide you high resistance to corrosion and corroded environments. There's also in our website, you can download a lot of there's white papers you can download that actually has a bunch of case studies on tests that they did with Enduro coat and the stainless steel bearings in corrosive environments like saltwater spray, saltwater environment type applications.
Gotcha. All right. I'll just put that away here, and I'm sure you'll get into the space reduction part of it as well throughout the rest of the presentation, but
yeah,
don't let me get into it.
Okay, so the next item we want to touch on is the value proposition. So Kadon has the most complete line of thin section bearings, like catalog bearings, and again, we also have our custom bearings. And we produce 1 to 2 pieces up to thousands of pieces for custom solutions. We also have a really strong engineering team in Michigan that's basically just dedicated to the thin section bearing design. And then again, we also have hundreds of catalog thin section designs in stock, and we also have a lot that they're not in stock, but all the components are stocked. We just have to do assembly. So usually it's a quick turnaround on the other type bearings. And then again, Kadon is seen as the experts in the real slim bearing industries, especially for aerospace, defense, and medical. So this is kind of touching on our 3 plants that are in United States. Our main plant is the Muskegon, Michigan plant. Again, that's where our main engineering group resides. That plant is 230,000 square feet, and about 95% of what they produce there is for aerospace and defense projects. Our 2 plants in South Carolina are Plant 12A and 12B. 12A, they are the smaller plant that they do more of the custom larger bearings and most of the defense bearings. And while the Plant 12B is our larger, it's a newer plant also, and they're our main plant for doing most of the catalog bearings up to 25 inches in diameter, which is generally, I would say 80%, 80 to 85% of what we sell actually goes through that plant. So some of the applications that we provide bearings to are food processing equipment. So unloading equipment, washing equipment, conveying equipment, packaging, and then part of packaging is like shrink wrapping machines. So basically the Kadon bearing would be placed in the base and then allow this packaging to spin. And again, in that bearing, it actually is geared. So the motor actually drives the bearing, which drives the platform so they can wrap it with the shrink wrap. Other industries are, robotics. We do a lot with robotics. And then some of the other things we've been touching on for robotics is exoskeletons for the medical industry and for defense. Bottling equipment, perfect example. You have a rotating platform. Again, anything that's spherical rotating, you could use a real slim bearing in. And for space saving, and they had to be all stainless steel and food grade grease or oil. Another area is security cameras that we do a lot of business with. So mounted security cameras where the camera has to rotate. Also drones, unmanned drones. We do a lot with those for camera mounted drones, and for police and news helicopters where they actually have cameras mounted to the bottom of the helicopters. Those also have real slim bearings. Another area, it would be basically ship mounted communication equipment, mostly radar. And oil and gas industry, we do a lot with pipe threading machines, pipe scanners, bore rigging, and then we also do roughneck equipment. And then for the medical industry, again, we do like this example on the top right is for a positron emission tomography scanner. And basically there's a bearing inside of here. I can't remember the size of it, I think it was 5 feet in diameter, but that actually rotates the whole equipment so they can do a 3D image of usually like brain scans, or usually it's for brain scans. And then also the gantry, radiation gantry turntable bearings. again, this whole machine rotates on a Kadon bearing. Semiconductors, we don't do a lot in Canada, but we do a lot in the US with semiconductor manufacturers. And so we do a lot with the vacuum robots, the die bonders, the chip flipping die bonders, and wafer steppers. And then we have another poll question.
Sure. Okay. Let's launch that. So in your industry, what's your view on thin section bearings? Again, I'll give you a few seconds to fill that in. Okay. All right. Here are those results. So it looks as though most people have not used any, but see the benefits of using the SKF Kadon bearing. 81% said that. The other was that the other most popular is I have used competitors' thin section. So it looks as though most of our attendees are new to the idea.
Okay. All right. Good to know.
Okay. Right away, Brad.
So moving on, the Kadon thin section bearings, we actually have basically real slim design software, and the catalog itself actually has a thin section bearing selector. So this is typical where most people will start. They'll go to our website, and they'll go to the thin section bearing portion under the products, and in there it'll actually have the bearing selecting site, and from there you can actually just basically plug in your bore size, your outer diameter size, and your width that you think that you need. And if hopefully there'll be a bearing or multiple bearings that will come up as possible bearings that you can use in your application. From there, from that list, you can download the real design software, and they have an inch version and a metric version. With this software, you can pretty much standardize on which bearing you'll need for your solution, because you can actually put in the loads, the speeds, the moment loads that you're going to have on the bearing, and from that list that you originally had, you can narrow it down to 1 or 2 bearings that you could use for your application by using this software. Again, this is kind of showing the software once you open it. Like I said before, once you have a list of bearings, you can enter these bearing models in this tab, and then from there you can actually go to this data sheet, and it'll actually give you a data sheet showing the bearing dimensions, the materials it's made out of. Down here it's cut off, but you'll have the static dynamic load ratings. It'll actually give you your standard recommended fits for your shafts and housings, and also your speed and load charts. And it also will show the number of balls, diameter of the balls, and the approximate weight of the bearings. So typically, in just a few seconds, you can actually have almost all the information in one sheet for the bearing that you're looking at. There's also options to, from there with a standard bearing part code, you can actually put the loads in, and it'll actually tell you if you exceeded the loads for that bearing, so that you can try a different bearing from your list until you get the loads that you need. Now, if you still can't find a bearing that meets your application, then you can contact myself or other, the other people that that deal with the Kadon products, and we can make a custom bearing for you, or modify an existing design to make it work for your application. The other nice thing about the Kadon website is even when you're in just a standard catalog area looking at bearings, and you find a bearing that has the right size, the right load ratings, you can actually click on the part code, and it'll automatically take you to this 3D viewer. And from the 3D viewer, you can also download the 3D models, so you can actually place those into your equipment design. So which helps, it saves time. You don't have to recreate the bearing itself. You can just download it from here. And I guess that is the end of the presentation. So if there's any questions, let me know, and I can answer it right now, or you can send it to me later.
Sure, we have a few questions. I wanted to ask one or two myself, if that's okay.
Okay.
Are there any special, like, lubrication or other kinds of special sort of treatment or upkeep of these kinds of bearings that differ from the standard, what we regularly think of as ball bearings, with really thin?
Again, like the open bearings are very similar to a standard open bearing. So you can either grease them, use oil, and you pretty much can decide whatever grease you want to use for your application. We can make custom bearings part codes that we can use any type of grease or any type of oil. So for the sealed bearings, those are typically shipped with our standard grease. But if for some reason you need a special food grade grease, or special grease for radiation or nuclear applications, typically have special grease requirements, or high temperature, low temperature grease. All that stuff's available. We just have to basically design around it, and we'll have to make custom part codes. But that's not an issue.
I see. Is there a cutoff point at which, like, if I'm an engineer and I'm thinking about whether to use a regular, traditional bearing or a thin section bearing, is there a cutoff point at which I would, whatever that design consideration might be, load, speed, is there a point at which I can start to consider, or I shouldn't consider?
Really, it's for really high speeds, high temperatures, or if you have really large thrust loads, then the real slim bearing kind of you're going to want to go away from that to more standard bearings, and high loads too. I mean, they can handle relatively high loads, but once you get into certain loads, I mean, they just won't be able to meet that. I don't really have a good way of it. I don't have a good explanation as far as what cutoff. I mean, you really have to
Sure.
look at the loads that you have, the
Yeah.
loads, speeds, and then go from there.
Gotcha.
Because I mean, typically the real slim bearing, the costs are going to be slightly higher than some radial bearings, but the amount of money you can save in your design by using the smaller cross section typically outweighs the price difference.
Yeah. Well, in your examples, it seemed like a lot of a lot of those applications can, there's, other than, like you say, the weight and the space and so on and so forth, there really isn't much difference between a standard regular old bearing and a thin section bearing,
Right,
so far
right.
as performance is concerned. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Oh, the other thing I want to mention is we had that poll question asking about people had used other competitors. Is there something special about the Kadon thin section bearing that differentiates it from others in the market?
I would have to say it's the engineering portion of it, where we do have, I believe we have a much better engineered product as far as using it for custom applications. As far as our bearing goes, as our catalog bearing, they're very similar. The materials we use are slightly different. In some cases, we consider them, better. But as far as sizes, and we do have a little bit larger range typically. But I mean, compared to our competitors, they're very similar products.
Okay.
But we do carry stock, and they are manufactured in the United States. So we do have really, really good controls over our materials and our manufacturing processes.
Gotcha.
So I would say the quality, I would think, is better. I mean, I don't want to say anything bad about our competitors, but some customers have come to us because they were using a competitor's brand bearing, and they were just having issues, quality issues with them, or delivery issues. So
Okay. Yeah. So one of our attendees asked, you had mentioned the stainless steel option for the material that the bearing is made out of. Is it offered in super duplex, super duplex kind of stainless steel?
the stainless steel, our standard stainless steel is a 440 stainless. But if there is a specific stainless that you want to make them out of, we can look into that to see if it'll work. So yeah, I mean, just reach out to me, and we can reach out to our engineering specialists in Muskegon, and go from there.
Sure. Great. And the other thing was that the bearing, the ball bearings themselves can be stainless. They can be or a ceramic, I think you said.
Yes, we have a standard steel ball bearing, and then stainless ball bearings for an all stainless design. And then you also can do the steel or stainless rings with the ceramic ball bearings. And typically we go with the ceramic for noise reduction and torque reduction, because they do run quieter. And for some cases where you have electricity in the actual application, that's another area where you'd want to use an Endura-coated bearing, or a bearing with the ceramic ball to reduce the chances of having electrical damage to the raceways in the bearings.
Gotcha. Okay. And does the speed of the application influence the load capacity?
Yeah, so as the speed goes up, the load rating will actually decrease. Is that, and not the load rating, but the life of the bearing will decrease. So that's why we change the load rating to say, okay, as your speed goes up, your load rating, you want to reduce your load rating to maintain your same service life of the product.
Gotcha. Do these thin section bearings have the same general sort of lifespan of a standard bearing?
I would say yes.
Okay.
I mean,
Great.
it really depends on the application. If you put this,
Sure.
yeah, if you
And how
put this
well it's
bearing,
maintained and so on and so forth. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, it looks as though that's all the questions that we have, and your contact information is up on the screen. So if anybody wants to contact you following this, they can. Um, so if anybody who's visiting, watching today would like to see the presentation or share it with a colleague, a recording of today's presentation will be posted and a link to it will be emailed to you in the next few days. So you'll have that opportunity to watch it again. With that, thank you everyone again for attending today, and have a great rest of your day. We'll catch you next time.